Hi and welcome to the video. For the past almost 3 weeks here in Costa Rica, I have been using the Canon RF 100mm f2.8 macro lens, and I think it's a very interesting lens because it offers a magnification that is bigger than the usual 1:1 magnification that we see on other macro lenses, and it also offers this SA control ring that you can use for some kind of creative effects. I also want to mention that I used it mainly for taking pictures of insects, spiders, amphibians, reptiles, both during the day and during the night with some flash and diffuser. So that's the type of macro photography I did. I want to say that there is many other things you can do in macro photography, like with flowers, with some bokeh in the background that is in the backlit and so on. I did not do this type of shots, so I would also not consider this as a complete review of the lens, rather just sharing my experiences when using it. I want to start with mentioning that this is not my lens. I actually own a Sigma 150mm f2.8 macro. However, for this trip I wanted something that is a bit lighter, and here I don't blame Sigma. A 150mm 2.8 is obviously heavier than a 100mm 2.8 as this one. And also I was not super happy with the autofocus and especially the image stabilizer of my 150mm macro from Sigma. In Switzerland, for butterflies in the morning, I usually use my tripod anyway, so it doesn't matter so much. But here, I actually never used the tripod with the macro lens. I was shooting during the day and also during the night with the flash, everything handheld. So I thought this could be a bonus. So I asked Canon if I can have this lens for these 3 weeks. The lens is around 730 grams heavy, or this is 1.6 pounds. The length without the lens hood is 14.8 centimeters or 5.8 inches, and it currently costs around $1,100, $1,200 US. You can sometimes find nice offers or cashback actions, so maybe check this before you buy. The lens offers a 67mm filter thread, so most of my other lenses have a bigger filter thread, like 77mm or something like that, meaning that I needed a step-up adapter if I wanted to use the polarizer, but that's not a big issue for me. And then on the external, we have on front the RF control ring, so where you can put ISO, exposure compensation, white balance, whatever you want. Then the manual focus ring, and then this SA control ring that at the moment I have locked because I don't want to accidentally change it. You can change it here with 4 steps to the minus or 4 steps to the plus. And I say steps, they have markings, but it's actually a continuous movement. So I put it back to lock. I will discuss about this feature a bit later. And then on the other hand side here, you have a focus limiter, so either the full range, 0.5 meter to infinity, or 26 centimeters to 0.5 meter. 26 centimeters is the minimum focus distance of this lens. It's also the distance, obviously, where you get the 1.4:1 magnification. And just as a quick reminder, this minimum focus distance is always counted from the sensor of the camera, not from the front of the lens. Below you have an autofocus manual focus switch, and finally the image stabilizer on and off switch. So a very good or important question, how is the image quality with this lens? I need to say I was very busy here in Costa Rica, just taking pictures, doing YouTube videos. I didn't have the time or the energy to do proper testings in the center of the frame, at the corner of the frames, at different apertures. I just did a quick test at f2.8 in the center of the image and all the corners, and the image sharpness in the center was very good, in the corners still good. You saw a bit of loss of contrast, and you saw a bit of vignetting, but this can be corrected in post if needed, and usually I also don't mind the vignetting so much, to be honest. Overall, in real-world use, I was very happy with the image quality that this lens delivered. The SA control, I tried to use it a couple of times. So if you go to the minus, you basically change the flares or the background bokeh a bit. Everything gets softer, it looks smoother. You can see this hopefully nicely in this image. Whereas if you go to the plus, it looks like these old Trioplan lenses, so you have like harder rings. It's a kind of a different effect. And there's something I want to mention here. As soon as you move this away from 0, you will see like a loss in sharpness and details and contrast. I did some portraits there, it was not too bad, but if I had something small, like it was a tiny bit in a backlit situation, you can see this with these flowers or fruits that are hanging down. If I go here to -4, you can see that they almost dissolve. So this you cannot resolve back. Depending on the subject, it's possible to compensate very well with some sharpening. Yeah, I think this can be nice for some situations where you're shooting backlight, even during hard light maybe, and you have some nice bokeh in the background. For example, if you're at a river or a lake or sea or whatever, I think it could look nice. So far, I just didn't use it so much for my style. But again, if you don't want to use it, you don't need to. You can also lock it in here. And also on your camera, it will show this from -4 to 4, how it is currently set, so that you, without looking at the lens, you can see through the viewfinder which settings you currently have active. The autofocus of this lens was quite good. In the normal shooting, it felt perfectly normal. The closer you get, the harder it is for the lens to focus, and often you might need to readjust a bit manually. Or the other thing, that you need to pre-focus manually because the focus is stuck on the background, and here the focus limiter is not helping. At least from my experience, if I had a small insect, like say 30 centimeters in front of the sensor, and I wanted to focus on it, and the focus was already on the background, it didn't detect it. It didn't manage to focus there, so I needed to manually pre-focus. Once you had the focus fairly close to the subject, of course the focus limiter was helping that the camera is not losing it and going on the background. So coming back to this pre-focusing, just like with a quick throw of the ring, bringing the focus plane closer to you. Usually I can just do this with a quick throw. I do this with my 600 millimeters, 70 to 200, 100 to 500 and so on. It works perfectly. It doesn't work with this lens, at least not in the setup that I have on my camera. So I need to explain a bit. I'm actually not using back button focus only. I use the shutter button for spot autofocus and the AF on button for the animal eye detection. So if I touch none of the buttons on the camera is not focusing. Still, in this moment, I cannot here change the focus manually without switching the AF-MF switch here. And this is very annoying. The RF 100 to 500 had the same behavior when I tested it the first time 2 years ago in 2021 in the summer. And then Canon actually changed this behavior by a firmware upgrade. It allowed that you can always change the focus without needing to switch the lens to manual focus. And this was really improving the handling of the lens in my opinion. Here it's not possible. Canon has a list of lenses where you have this feature. It's called Always Electronic Manual Focus. This one is not supported. So my workaround is that for macro work with this lens, I need to deactivate the shutter autofocus and only have back button, which is a bit annoying. And I honestly don't get why this cannot be improved over a firmware update. Since I was shooting everything handheld, a good image stabilizer was important to me. I did some quick tests, like at a normal distance, 5 meters, 1/20th of a second at obviously 100 millimeter focal length. And without the image stabilizer, more than 80% of the pictures were blurry, like completely blurry, unusable. With the image stabilizer on, all of them were basically tack sharp. Usually, if you get closer, you have a bigger magnification, the image stabilizer gets worse. This is normal for all lenses. I even feel it with my 100 to 500 if I get closer to a subject. And here it was the same. I did a quick test at half a meter distance, and there I had still around 80% blurry without image stabilizer. With the image stabilizer on, I still had 30% of the pictures perfectly sharp, 30% okay-ish, and 30% blurry. So still an improvement. So what are my conclusions about this lens? Overall, I was very happy having this lens for Costa Rica. I think I will not buy it for Switzerland at the moment because, or in general in Europe, if I take pictures of dragonflies, butterflies, amphibians, even if I go early in the morning when they are not so active, I still prefer to have a bigger working distance. Also because I usually use the tripod, so I don't want to get with the legs of the tripods too close to the butterflies. If I have a small butterfly, I just prefer a longer distance. So I will happily keep my 150 millimeter macro for this type of work. I also don't need the best autofocus or image stabilizer. But here for Costa Rica, this was really nice. Also because it's often a bit denser vegetation, so I'm actually happy about getting closer to the subjects because I don't have the problem of leaves in the foreground. If I shoot at night with the flash, usually I had somebody that helped me with holding the diffuser, but if not, I was very happy when I needed to hold the diffuser with one hand and the flash and taking the pictures with the other, that the distance was a bit shorter. So for Europe, I would find it really nice if Canon would bring a 150 or 180 millimeter macro. Doesn't need to be f2.8. I would also be very happy with, let's say, f3.5. Let's see if they bring something like this. If you're not sure if you should choose this one or the old EF 100 millimeter f2.8, well, I cannot give you much advice on upgrading from the old one to this one because I could not test them side by side. I did some shots with the old EF 100 millimeter macro, but it was a while ago. I think if I would buy new, however, I would, well, just state that I would go directly for this one without having done a proper comparison, because it's about the same weight and size if you count the EF RF adapter for the old lens, and it's around 20% more expensive, so around 200 bucks, at least when I checked the prices last time. And maybe you're happy at some point about the SA function here, this SA control. You have a nicer or bigger magnification that might be useful, and you have a more modern lens. At some point you will probably be happy to ditch your adapters. So I think if I would buy new, I would try this, or then go for a used EF 100 millimeter macro. That's of course always an option. As I mentioned, not a complete review, but I hope this kind of sharing my experiences with the lens was helpful for you. If yes, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next video. Let me know in the comments which macro lens you are using at the moment.